Welcome back, WNST. Going to Vegas, hoping to drink the nectar of the hockey gods from the chalice of Lord Stanley. This guy will be right along for the ride. He's usually never more than about 20 feet away from me in any hockey game where I can yell, some obscenity or some off-color remark about hockey or something in his direction to make him smile. One of my favorite guys on the Caps beat. He's with NBC Washington. I've stopped saying the C word after all this time. He is Tarik, NBCS, and he will be in Las Vegas. Dude, you've been doing this for 2 decades now. I went resume on you with the New York Times and your NASCAR and your background. I remember the Redskins era, covering a championship team. I've covered a couple of them now with the Ravens. Boy, the integrity of these people that, in your picture on Twitter is you sitting with players and talking to players, and that's your thing. I like these guys a lot, being around them, and I've always liked Barry Trotz, and I've always liked hockey players, and I know I've talked to you privately. It's really neat being around these guys again 30 years later after I was on a hockey beat as a young person. The good old hockey game, it's the best game you can name, right, Tark?
It is. I mean, I've grown up in and around the game my entire life. It was the only sport that I played as a kid. Now I cover the Capitals full time, have for the last 2 years. My son plays AAA hockey in the area, so I'm in a rink pretty much 7 days a week, so I'm around hockey people all the time. And you're right. I mean, nothing beats the game, and nothing beats the folks who are in the game. And there's something special about it. I've covered 11 iterations of Capitals teams as a beat writer, as a beat reporter, going back to 2004. I covered a little hockey before that for the New York Times, but I'll be honest, this is the most fun I've had covering a group, and it's not just because they're making a championship run. It's because of the guys in the room. They're just all fun. There's not a whole lot of pretense. There's not a whole lot of arrogance. I mean, everyone's down to earth. Even Alex Ovechkin, who would have every reason to be arrogant, he's just not. And I think that's really playing into the success this group is having. They're having a lot of fun with each other, and that matters. And they all seem to be pulling on the rope at the same time. Previous teams, Nestor had more talent, but this is a better team. This group just seems to have everyone in the right spot, everyone doing their jobs, not worried about next year or their next contract or, all the other things that can pull a team apart, how they're going to fit in next year. They're just focused on the here and now, and that's why I think they're going to hoist the cup here.
Look, I don't want to compare Ovechkin to Ray Lewis, and I'm not a detractor of Ray Lewis. We're doing a trip, this summer out to Canton. He's going to the Hall of Fame. But I was there at the beginning. And I was there at the end, and I love saying that to an athlete when they get here. I love going up to Lamar Jackson and saying, hey, I was here the day you got here. I'll probably be here the day you leave because I've been doing it for 33 years. And all of these years through this, Ray Lewis became a different human being, from the time he was a kid coming in until the end, and still today, on TV saying whatever goofy thing he's saying this week. And he kind of went the wrong direction as a dude, He went from being a regular guy into this holier than thou and had his own sequestered area. And not all the guys on the team, even in retrospect, have anything good to say about him other than he was a hell of a player. Ovechkin was kind of the other way, right? Kind of came in Russian, didn't speak English, probably drank too much, caroused too much, was out too late, probably didn't eat the right things, probably wasn't doing the right things, getting by on being young and just that much bigger and stronger and better and faster. And now he's at this sort of zen place in his career where, liked by everybody. My buddy Robert Kennedy was up in Toronto on Monday for the game. He said the bar was all rooting for the Caps, and he couldn't figure out why these Canadian people were rooting for the Russian kid. And he went by and quizzed them, and they're like, he's earned it. He's earned it. And this is the Canadian people that didn't like him. He's earned it by becoming a better person, a better teammate, speaking English better, being better about everything, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think he came over as a kid with a lot of potential and very bright-eyed and inquisitive, and everything was exciting, and that's how people in D.C. first fell in love with him. I mean, they had never seen anything like Alex Ovechkin's energy and what he showed on the ice. And then he had experienced a little failure, and he kind of pulled back a little bit. And I think that made him a little more distant, and his interviews weren't nearly as interesting as they were his first few years. And then he had some more failures. And I just like anyone, as you grow, as you get older, you realize, life is not all about your job and, if you're a hockey player, about every single result on the ice. He got married recently, and that's really changed his outlook on life. And he's back to that fun-loving kid. It's almost like he's come full circle. You go back to those celebrations he had, his first 3 or 4 years, and then he kind of got beat down by the media criticism and by the fan criticism and by social media and also just all the disappointment in the playoffs and even on the international stage playing for Team Russia. And then you go on this run right here, and I look at Alex Ovechkin's face, and I see the same kid that I covered back in 2005 and 2006 and 2007. The love for the game is back. Coach Trotz says something quite often. I haven't heard it recently, but he said it a lot over the past few years. You got to have joy. You have to have joy in your life and in your game to enjoy your craft and the people around you and what you're doing to really get the most out of yourself and the people around you. And that's happened with this group. It's happened with Alex Ovechkin. I mean, he's all of us right now. Like after Opie made the save, and he puts his gloved hands over his face. And after Kuznetsov scores and he looks to the heavens and, mouth wide open, just screaming at the top of his lungs. He scored his own goal and he stuck his tongue out. These are the kind of celebrations we saw with the young Ovi. And you can tell he's just starting to have that love and that fire and that fun. And it's feeding this team. I mean, you can tell it's fueling the guys around him. When you have a player who is as engaged and into every moment of every shift, the way Alex Ovechkin is right now, the guys around him who are tired and beat up, they're like, look, if this 32-year-old guy who's done everything and has all the money in the world can be this into it, so can I. I'll figure it out. I'll dig deep and match his intensity and his hunger right now.
Tarik El-Bashir is our guest. You can find him at Tarik NBCS out on Twitter. He'll be ringside for Game 5 in Vegas. Hopefully there ain't no Game 6 or 7. I don't even want to think like that. And in thinking through all of this, I got the last question on Trotz at the presser on Monday night. And, this is a whole different couple of days, right? I mean, you're getting on an airplane for you as a cover. By the way, do we have to wear like raincoats or something? Will our suits get stained, do you think, on the ice by various that's a later question, but you have to think for all of this that you're getting on a plane to go win a Stanley Cup. You're waking up that day and you can win a Stanley Cup. That's just a different place. I would think for any of these guys who've dreamed of this all this time, this is going to be an interesting 48 to 72 hours to see how this works, because if the thing comes back Sunday night and it's 2-2 in the third period, that's not what Caps fans want right now. Is more of what we had in the last round where they blew a 2-0 lead.
Nestor, these are professionals, man. They are able to do things that you and I can't do. They're able to put things into compartments and block out distractions, and they do things at a level that you and I can't imagine. And that's why they've been able to get to this point. I mean, there's millions of hockey players in the world. There's 730 in the National Hockey League. I mean, what it takes to get to this point in their lives, 2 teams left fighting for the championship, they're able to do things in terms of focus and mental strength that the average person can't. And I remember your question, and I followed up with some players about it afterwards, and they are going to be able to block out all of that noise, and they have all postseason. I think maybe last year's team or the team before this, before last year's team, the last 2 years, they might have struggled with that. They struggled with adversity. They struggled to put things into compartments and look at things shift by shift, period by period, game by game, which is how the Pittsburgh Penguins approached, their championship runs. I remember hearing Scotty Bowman talk about that's how the Detroit Red Wings during their dynasty approached things. They're going to be able to do it because they've done it all postseason long. They've done it all regular season long. It is going to be interesting for sure, but I wouldn't bet against this group being able to block out the temptation, that's probably the right word, to look ahead at what might be next. They know to a man that they are going to face Vegas's best performance. They're going to come out like caged animals. I mean, because their lives are they don't know when they're ever going to get a chance to play for a Stanley Cup again, and this is it for them. They're going to come out harder than they did in Game 4, and I just feel like this Capitals team has something that it hasn't had before in terms of its mental fortitude and toughness. And I don't think they're going to be distracted. They've gone to great lengths to cut out those distractions this postseason. We're going to hear about those when the run is over. And I think they're going to be okay. I think they're going to get to Vegas. They're going to go back into that bunker mentality. I remember we were in Vegas for games 1 and 2, and I don't remember which game it was, but in a post-game press conference, Trotz said, "Yeah, my guys have just caved it up." That was the word. They're like living in a cave. They don't even leave the hotel. All the distractions there are in Vegas, they've just been hanging out with each other in the room. And I think they're gonna do the same thing in terms of their approach to Game 5. I think they're gonna be fine.
I saw Ovechkin and the hairs. I've always wondered just how hideous these guys would look when they grew the beards to this level. The June level beard, and they look like cavemen, like a Captain Caveman, every one of them. So I was going to share that because they're caving, and part of this is Trotz too, and the calm of him. And I don't want to say the Capitals have mismanaged this. Maybe they've managed it perfectly, and they get out the other side, and everybody has good warm fuzzies and all that. But Trotz has not had the warm fuzzies, I think, about the organization and the coaching situation and playing to the end and becoming a free agent. And now the organization stands to be in some sort of trouble, turmoil if he doesn't return at this point. But if I'm writing the book on this and you're the writer as well, I would say things changed with this thing when Trotz came in. Trotz gave them an ability from a coaching level, and so many of these players have gotten better right before our very eyes. From Orlov, I think Holtby's gotten better. Ovechkin's gotten better, if that's possible. Certainly Kuznetsov has become one of the elite players. So if checking the boxes of coaching is, have you gotten the most out of all of your players, boy, Barry Trotz has done that.
Well, he's certainly done it this year. Let's not forget that he didn't make it out of the second round in 18 previous seasons. So he had some growing to do as well. And I think that he has found another level for his coaching. I think last year you could criticize some of the decisions that he made when they flamed out against the Penguins in Game 7 of the second round. He's pushed all of the right buttons this postseason. It's been a totally different kind of vibe around him. He's been looser. He's been more willing to take risks. I mean, just go back to the decision to start Phil Grubauer at the start of the postseason. I don't know if he would have done that a year ago had he been under contract for another year. I think being a free agent kind of freed him up to make some tougher decisions, like going to Grubauer. And then after Grubauer gave up 8 goals on 49 shots, going right back to Braden Holtby. I think he was able to make some bolder decisions because he didn't feel beholden to the organization or to guys he might have to deal with next year. He said, basically, look, I don't know what's going to happen next year. I'm going to go with my instincts. I'm not going to worry about guys who are under contract for next year and I'm going to have to deal with them. I'm not going to worry about what other people, the outside world is saying. I'm just going to do what my coaching instincts are telling me to do. And I think you've seen him push all the right buttons in this postseason and make all the right adjustments, going back to a more defensive style that, in the past, people who have tried to install a more defensive style, coaches that have tried to do that with this Capitals team, they got a little pushback from their star players who didn't like to play that way. There was no pushback.
Starting with number 8, right? Literally, starting with number 8, who was, I'm not putting myself in front of that flying puck. That has not been a problem here over the last 6 weeks.
He's been throwing himself in front of those flying pucks. He's been making soccer-style saves with his legs. I mean, it's almost laughable. I asked Trotz about it yesterday, and he didn't bite. I was hoping he'd say something funny, but I mean, Ovechkin's shot blocking skills leave a lot to be desired. It's terrible form. It's amazing he hasn't hurt himself because he literally gets in front of the shot and then sticks his leg out to block it. Or his foot. It's the craziest
Dude,
thing.
I don't know how much Ravens you watch, but if I say right now to my audience, it's like watching Joe Flacco slide, they would understand.
I grew up in Maryland, so I do watch the Ravens. I'm a Redskins fan, but I always have Ravens kind of interest. So I know exactly what you're talking about. It just doesn't look right. It doesn't look right.
By the way, the whole Baltimore thing, dude, I'm up here. Baltimore's like, the stadium was red. The Ravens lit the stadium red on Monday night. I ran into Ravens employees at the tailgate with my son on Monday watching Fall Out Boy. Everyone on my Facebook, and maybe part of this is because the Orioles stink so bad that they're unwatchable, and this is part of, at 8 o'clock at night, I'll put the hockey game on 5-6 weeks ago. But this is a real brand opportunity for the Capitals and for everything that you've covered in Washington, and unlike anything you've covered in Washington from a championship perspective, and the crowds that have been gathering and what's going to happen there Thursday night when we're all out in Vegas trying to get this done. It's really been a galvanizing thing, right? That the beauty of sports bringing people together even in trying political times.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I live way out near Dulles Airport, and there were some buildings on the toll road last night that I noticed for the first time were lit up in red. There are a couple of buildings in Reston that can change the color of their lights, and they were all red last night as I was driving home. I hadn't noticed that before. Certainly, the city is this whole region is behind the Capitals right now. I mean, and let's not forget, for a long time, the Capitals played in Landover, Maryland, and that was awfully close to 95, which got you right to Baltimore in 25 minutes. So a lot of those fans did come from the Baltimore area. I don't think the folks in Howard County and Anne Arundel County abandoned the Capitals because they went to downtown D.C. Maybe they stopped attending games because they moved so far away, but they still were fans. So it is certainly a galvanizing thing, especially when you're a town that is a transient town, a transient region, but still we've got all the major sports. We just haven't been able to do good at any of them in so long. People have been so hungry for a championship at anything higher than MLS in the past couple of decades. It goes all the way back to the Redskins in '92. So this region has deserved it. They've been hungry for it, and God willing, they're about to get it.
And around here, at least we say it's at least not the Redskins. It'd be nothing like that. Tarik El-Bashir is our guest. You can find him out on Twitter at Tarik NBC, as he will be out in the heat of Vegas. All right, last thing for you on the actual what's happening on the ice. Boy, Kuznetsov has become a superstar right before our very eyes and might be the best player on the team here at the end in some sort of strange way, which would probably be unfair to Backstrom, who I've always called that, or Ovechkin, who many would call the best player on earth. And let's not forget about Holtby and his role in all of this as the hot goaltender guy. But Kuznetsov's the story, and as we made the turn last week coming out of Vegas, there was a question as to whether he would continue in the tournament, right?
When you think of the most important positions in hockey, I go goaltender, then I go number one center. Those are the guys who have to get the job done for you through. It doesn't matter, regular season, preseason, playoffs. Those have to be your best players. And for a long time, that was Nicholas Backstrom. I think there now is a separation now. Kuznetsov is now pulled in front of Backstrom in terms of his status as the number one center on a team that's one win away from the Stanley Cup. You look at the 31 points that he's got right now. He's scoring goals. He's setting up his teammates. The 4 assists that he had in Game 4, that equaled the Stanley Cup record. That's ridiculous. 4 assists. Team scored 6 goals, and he set up 4 of them. He's been otherworldly. He's been outstanding. He's always been a star player, but now he's becoming a superstar, if you know what I mean. He's going to be a household name. People are going to mispronounce Kuznetsov around the country, but he's going to be a household name starting next year. Anyone who watched the Stanley Cup final is now going to want to see more. Look, Ovechkin's the greatest goal scorer. Holtby's a very, very good goaltender. Nicholas Backstrom is an underrated, very, very good center. I think in terms of all of the components of the game, Kuznetsov's the best player on the team.
I hope to be there. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't say that lightly, and I'm one of the people who gets a vote for the Conn Smythe trophy, and I will be making that vote here in the next little while. And I'll be honest, I'm wrestling with Ovechkin versus Kuznetsov. Ovi would be the Lifetime Achievement Award, and he's been great in these playoffs, and he's really led them by the way he's played physically, the way he's done the details of the game, blocking shots, everything that he's done. But in terms of pure production, Kuznetsov is certainly deserving of playoff MVP.
Last thing for you, I guess on Thursday night, Ovechkin could be carting the cup up and down the strip. Wouldn't it be nice he went to those places with all the White Russian jokes out on the signs from last week? Wouldn't that be cool? Walk in with the cup and say, I'll have a large white Russian. Put it right in the cup here. We'll all drink it. And I need 20 straws.
You're crazy. That would be great, though. That would be great.
I want to take him to Beer House after that, right around 1 a.m. strip time. Hey, man, we'll see you out there. You know how to do this. I mean, dress in light detail. It's going to be 105 outside, and I'm sure the ice will be soupy and slushy just the way they're ordering it.
Exactly.
Be well. Tarik El-Bashir does a great job with all things Cavs and Washington sports out at NBC Sports and NBCS Washington. You can find him there as well as out on Twitter. He's usually standing next to a hockey player trying to make them laugh and learn things, which is great, which is why I like having Tarik on. All right, you can find me out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day. You can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. We'll be on the strip. We'll be in the strip. We'll be in the rink. We'll be out of the rink. I'll be on with Dennis Colossus at 4:15 on Thursday during the SSV on WNST, and we're trying to avoid Game 6, but we're going to do whatever it takes out in the desert to get it done. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.